Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we are going to talk through Ultra-Processed People, The Science Behind the Food That Isn't Food by Chris Van Tulleken, published in 2023. Have you ever stopped to think about the impact of the food you eat on your health and the health of the planet? Author Chris Van Tulleken explores the alarming rise of ultra-processed foods, UPF, in our diets and the detrimental effects they have on our overall well-being. The book begins by highlighting the concept of genetic arms races and how our genes are constantly engaged in competition with each other. This internal struggle for dominance drives the evolution of complexity within our genes and may even be responsible for the evolution of complexity itself. Van Tulleken then segues into discussing the modern food industry and the proliferation of UPF, which have infiltrated our diets and are wreaking havoc on our health. UPF, as the name suggests, are highly processed foods that are manufactured using industrial processes and contain low-cost ingredients. These foods are typically cheaper and more convenient than their unprocessed counterparts, making them an attractive option for many individuals. However, the convenience comes at a significant cost to our health. The consumption of UPF has been linked to a range of negative effects, including increased rates of cancer, metabolic diseases like diabetes and obesity, and mental health issues. The author explains how these foods disrupt our body's signaling mechanisms, leading to overeating and weight gain. Moreover, the industrial food production system that produces UPF is also contributing to declining biodiversity and climate change. The book urges readers to recognize the harmful effects of UPF and take steps to combat its influence on our health and the planet. One of the key points emphasized is that obesity should be viewed as a form of malnutrition rather than simply a disorder of excess. The author points out that in countries like the UK and the USA, children are not only heavier but also shorter than their peers in other high-income Western countries. This suggests that the problem goes beyond individual willpower and is influenced by factors such as genetic vulnerability, poverty, injustice, inequality, trauma, fatigue, and stress. Current policies and approaches to combating obesity have largely failed because they do not address the root cause, the commercialization and promotion of UPF. Van Tulleken highlights the need for better information about the risks associated with UPF and improved access to healthier, unprocessed foods. He encourages readers to make informed choices about the food they consume and advocate for changes in the food industry and government policies. To better understand the rise of UPF and their impact on our diets, the book delves into the ingredients and manufacturing processes used in these foods. Using ice cream as an example, the author explains how emulsifiers and gums are used to enhance texture, prevent the formation of ice crystals, and extend shelf life. UPF often replace expensive ingredients with cheap alternatives and additives, resulting in lower costs but also sacrificing nutritional value. The author also discusses the history of UPF, tracing their origins back to the invention of margarine and the development of various types of oils used in these foods. The early processing of food was driven by the need for preservation, as fermented foods like yogurt and butter have longer shelf lives than fresh milk. Over time, breakthroughs in industrial chemistry allowed for the creation of artificial butter substitutes, like margarine, using plant oils instead of animal fats. The process of hydrogenation was used to make plant oils solid, and the refining of cottonseed oil further contributed to the production of UPF. The book also highlights the potential health risks associated with UPF, including the creation of trans fats through hydrogenation. Trans fats are known to increase bad cholesterol levels and the risk of heart disease. Despite efforts to reduce their consumption, these harmful fats continue to be present in many UPF. Scientific studies have provided evidence linking UPF consumption to weight gain, obesity, and various chronic diseases. The book discusses the theory proposed by Carlos Montero, a scientist who classified foods into 4 groups: unprocessed or minimally processed foods, processed culinary ingredients, processed foods, and ultra-processed foods. Montero's research suggests that the rapid increase in obesity is directly related to the consumption of UPF. The author also explores the work of Kevin Hall, a physicist and researcher in nutrition science. Hall conducted a groundbreaking experiment comparing the effects of an unprocessed diet to a diet primarily composed of UPF. The results were startling. Participants on the UPF diet consumed more calories and gained weight, while those on the unprocessed diet lost weight. This study provides further evidence supporting the link between UPF consumption and weight gain. In addition to the health risks, UPF have a significant impact on our environment and climate. The industrial food production system that produces UPF contributes to deforestation, greenhouse gas emissions, and the loss of biodiversity. The massive scale of UPF production and their reliance on cheap and unsustainable ingredients exacerbate these environmental problems. The book raises concerns about the prevalence of UPF in our diets and calls for a shift towards healthier, unprocessed foods. It emphasizes the importance of understanding the impact of UPF on our health and the choices we make regarding our food. The author advocates for better education and information about UPF, as well as improved access to real, nutritious food. To better inform consumers, the book addresses the complex systems used to determine the nutritional value of food, particularly in the UK. It discusses the voluntary use of traffic light labels that highlight levels of fat, saturated fat, salt, and sugar in food products. It also introduces the HFSS, high in fat, salt, and sugar designation, which is determined by the nutrient profile model. The process of calculating the nutrient profile score involves awarding points for bad ingredients and subtracting points for good ingredients. However, these systems have limitations and do not provide a clear definition of what is considered healthier or less healthy, especially for children. The author calls for a reevaluation of our food systems and the way we approach eating. It challenges the notion that obesity is solely the result of individual choices and highlights the impact of factors like poverty, genetics, and the food environment. He advocates for a more compassionate and understanding approach to tackling obesity and emphasizes the need for systemic changes in the food industry and government policies. Through interviews with experts in the field, the author learns about the addictive nature of UPF and how it affects the brain's reward system. They also discover that many UPF products are made from heavily modified ingredients, additives, and preservatives. As the author becomes more aware of the negative effects of UPF, their perspective on these foods begins to shift. They start to view UPF as a separate category of addictive edible substances and explore the similarities between addiction to UPF and addiction to substances like cigarettes. Neuroimaging studies show that the reward pathways in the brain are similarly affected by both food addiction and substance misuse. The author proposes that viewing UPF as an addictive substance can help reduce stigma and blame around obesity and overconsumption and provide a framework for regulating harmful addictive substances, similar to tobacco control. The author also delves into the impact of food processing on our jaws, teeth, and calorie intake. They explain that modern humans have smaller jaws compared to their ancestors due to changes in diet and decreased chewing. This has implications for our ability to properly chew and digest food. He highlights a study where Greek children who chewed a hard gum had longer jaws and cheekbones, demonstrating the role of chewing in facial growth. Additionally, UPF are often calorie-dense and dry, which leads to faster consumption and increased calorie intake. The softness and energy density of UPF make them highly palatable and easy to consume quickly. The science of smell, taste, and flavor is also explored. The author discusses how the food industry exploits these senses to create UPF. Flavor is a combination of taste, smell, and touch, and the brain uses information from these senses to create an impression of flavor. Smell, in particular, plays a crucial role in detecting potential harmful substances in food and selecting safe and nutritious options. Our sense of smell is highly precise and can distinguish between over 1 trillion potential compounds. However, the modern food industry has bred out flavor and nutrition from many foods, leaving us craving more and consuming less nutritious options. The book also emphasizes the importance of consuming micronutrients in their natural form within food, rather than in supplement form. Nutrients are more readily available and absorbed by the body when they are embedded in the food matrix. Tolkien also cautions against the addition of flavorings in processed foods, as they are often a sign of low micronutrient content. This is one of the reasons why UPF can contribute to health issues like obesity. He further delves into the complex world of taste and explores how food manufacturers use taste interactions to make us eat their products. They enhance flavors using sweet, sour, salt, and savory elements. The author mentions Coca-Cola as an example of how flavors can be manipulated to mask bitterness and increase sugar content. Artificial sweeteners are also discussed, highlighting their potential negative health effects and their role in promoting overconsumption and metabolic diseases. These artificial sweeteners may trigger an insulin response and increase hunger, as well as disrupt the gut microbiome. Tolkien raises concerns about the increase in consumption of artificially sweetened drinks by children, despite regulations prohibiting their addition to foods marketed for babies and toddlers. He questions the effectiveness of current initiatives that promote lower sugar alternatives but lack evidence of their health benefits. The author also explores the addictive nature of UPF, using Pringles as an example, and discuss how the shape and sensory experience of the product contribute to increased consumption. He also touches on the use of additives and emulsifiers in UPF, highlighting their prevalence and potential effects on the body. The impact of emulsifiers in UPF is specifically discussed. Emulsifiers, such as lecithins and DATEM, are classified as natural, but are often made up of chemically modified mixtures. They can damage the gut barrier, alter the microbiome, and lead to inflammation and metabolic disorders. Other additives commonly found in UPF, such as maltodextrins and gums, are also mentioned as potential contributors to gut and immune system-related health issues. The author also explores the implications of xanthan gum, a common food additive used for thickening, on the human gut microbiome. Research has shown that xanthan gum serves as food for a new bacterial species that has colonized billions of people who consume the gum. The effects of these bacteria on the body are not yet fully understood, but Tolkien suggests that xanthan gum may have significant impacts on immune system development. Other food additives, such as trehalose and emulsifiers, have been linked to adverse effects on the gut microbiome, including outbreaks of the superbug Clostridium difficile and altered levels of beneficial bacteria. Lack of regulation and oversight in the food additive industry are discussed. Unlike medical drugs, where strict regulations are in place, companies can determine the safety of their own food additives. This self-determination process lacks oversight, allowing companies to market products with unlicensed additives and antibiotics. Only a small number of food chemicals undergo thorough testing for safety, and the majority have been self-determined by the companies that produce them. Tolkien emphasizes the need for more independent research to understand how additives affect our health in the long term, and calls for a shift in the burden of proof for long-term safety to be on the companies. The book sheds light on the marketing tactics employed by food companies, particularly in low-income communities. It discusses Nestlé's aggressive marketing strategies, particularly in Brazil, and highlight the challenges posed by UPF to traditional food cultures. The author explores how Nestlé's initiatives have contributed to the displacement of traditional diets and the rise of UPF consumption in Brazil, leading to increased rates of obesity and diet-related diseases, especially among children. He also discusses the role of soy farming in the production of UPF in Brazil and its impact on deforestation, climate change, and pesticide use. The author takes a critical look at the legal battles surrounding the classification of Pringles as a potato snack and its tax implications. He highlights how companies often use legal strategies to minimize tax obligations and increase profits. He also delves into the environmental costs of UPF consumption, including climate change, land use, antibiotic resistance, and plastic pollution. and emphasizes the need for a more sustainable and agroecological farming system to address these issues and improve our health and the environment. Tolkien explores the power dynamics within the food industry and the conflicting interests that often drive its actions. Companies prioritize profits and shareholder value above all else, and their social and environmental projects are secondary to this objective. He discusses the harmful marketing practices of formula milk companies and how they negatively impact infant feeding practices. They call for governments and the medical profession to take action to create a better food system that prioritizes the health and well-being of people over profit. The implementation of policies in Chile that aim to address high obesity rates is discussed. These policies include restrictions on marketing and the use of mandatory labels on foods high in energy, sugar, sodium, and saturated fat. Despite challenges from food manufacturers, research has shown that these policies have had a significant impact on food purchases, with children even influencing their parents to avoid certain products. The author calls for policies that empower individuals to make informed choices rather than simply dictating what they should eat. Overall, the book explores the complex world of ultra-processed foods and their impact on our health, the environment, and society. It highlights the addictive nature of UPF and the negative effects they can have on our bodies and minds. The author delves into the science of taste, flavor, and the manipulation of these senses by the food industry to make us crave UPF. Tolkien discusses the presence of additives and artificial sweeteners in UPF and their potential health implications. He also raises concerns about the lack of regulation and oversight in the food additive industry and the need for more independent research. Additionally, Tolkien examines the power dynamics within the food industry and the conflicting interests that drive its actions. He discusses the impact of marketing strategies on infant feeding practices and the importance of government policies to address the issues associated with UPF. He emphasizes the need for a shift towards a more sustainable and agroecological farming system and the empowerment of individuals to make informed choices about their food. Thank you so much for watching this video. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'll see you in the next video.